had a video on JoJo Lands recorded, but I saw a tweet about every Joestar and their Pokemon types. So I believe that it's my job as the, supposedly greatest JoJo Pokemon guy to do it in its entirety, meaning abilities and hidden abilities also. So firstly, we have Josuke Higashikata from Diamond is Unbreakable. His typing is going to be Fairy and Psychic. Now, the Fairy in this case represents the powerful utility archetype that can be made offensive depending on what it's paired with. I'm pairing it with Psychic instead of fighting because I believe in Josuke's stand prowess and it being greater than his fighting ability. While you could argue that Josuke is a fighter since he squared up with Jotaro, consider how many times Josuke's intellect and use of his stand played more of an important role than just blatantly punching. And while his fighting could be representative of his fighting spirit, I think that his spirit is truly a fairy type. Now, in the psychic type, it's because Josuke's restoration ability isn't just a fairy type ability just because it heals and stuff. It's important to consider that restoration could also be representative of psychic in the same way that telekinesis can be. While we might think Josuke's restoration would be fairy because he's a great person who chooses to heal people, restoration itself could have been used entirely for selfish purposes without healing a single person. Therefore, it cannot solely be a fairy type ability. Now, his primary ability, this one is a little bit rough because I was trying to find out what else it could be, but the easy thing here is to choose Healer, which is representative of him healing Morio and his hurt friends more than his ability to heal physical injuries. And we're not going to put Regenerator here. He cannot heal himself. That's not how that works. And what I believe to be his hidden ability, which could also instead just be his secondary ability because I think he's shown it very early on, especially against his fight with Keicho Nijimura, Guts. Because this is Josuke's ability to bring more out of himself even when in an afflicted state. This will be the same reasoning for other characters that I give Guts to. The next Joestar is Jonathan Joestar, and his typing is going to be Grass Fighting. And note here, younger Jonathan would have been normal fighting. All right. So the reasoning for this typing, grass represents Hamon, not fire. While we use solar energy, Hamon is a life energy, and life is closer to grass than fire, which is more tool based, utility based. And it is a part of being, but it's not entirely human being or other biological stuff. Now, when it comes down to fighting, yeah, he's all his life he's had to fight. Very resilient. He scraps. That's pretty straightforward. As for his primary ability, it will be chlorophyll instead of solar power. As yes, they're both. He's powered by the sun, and it also may only raise his speed. But he's already coming with the power. And while Hamon did enhance his strength. Imagine this case, all right? A Pokemon with a base 130 physical attack having its speed multiplied. That's what happened with Jonathan. He got really brolic and all, that was off of his own. But once you added in the Hamon stuff, it's like, oh, okay, I've become all that I needed to be. And plus, he's already getting benefits from the sun in this case. I see Jonathan as a type of grass starter, honestly. Just one that happens to have both chlorophyll and fighting type in his duel. It's like, it could be like Rillaboom plus Venusaur type of thing going on, which is really busted, but it really does sound like Jonathan. And you might be thinking, Caleb, I really can't get behind this grass thing. Something just doesn't feel right. And it probably doesn't feel right because his hidden ability, Guts was his secondary ability. His hidden ability is Protean. What became his character later on in his adaptability to his surroundings using Hamon. Protean allows you to change into the type of the move that you're attacking with, giving you a same type attack bonus in terms of strength. He's in the water. He's using the water. He's wielding fire. It's very effective. He reads the earth. He's everything. That's Protean. This guy is one of the greatest starters ever. Going on to the next one, we have Joseph Joestar, who I am saying is Psychic Grass. Reasoning for the typing, right? Psychic type. Joseph's greatest asset has always been his mind. He has his analytical skills, able to predict the opponents. He's a tactical genius. All of this points towards psychic. While he's physically capable, and while I can give him like a good physical attack stat, Joseph wins through intellect and reading situations rather than raw power. You know, that's the whole reason why he's like, oh, okay, Toyu, and like that whole prediction stuff. The grass type thing is the same reasoning as Jonathan because having grass represent life. All right, for his abilities, the first one should be a given. He has download. And that's being his signature trait to quickly analyze and assess his opponents during battle. Download raises either attack or special attack based on the opponent's lowest defensive stat. So that's representing on how Joseph can essentially take apart someone and adapt his strategy accordingly. And as for his hidden ability, we're doubling up. We're going with Protean again. Joseph shares Jonathan's adaptability, but takes it even further. You know, he's extremely resourceful, but he's able to turn any situation towards his advantage. That's what the whole part was based on. And I think that Protean will honestly get probably more usage out of Joseph. Next up, we have Jolyne Kujo, and her type is going to be normal fighting. Now, the reason for this typing, right? While you may expect bug type because of her string abilities, that's really too easy of a connection. And it's also like, oh, okay, because it's silk. And it's like, right, this is a stand, you know? Jolyne's abilities are inherently human, you know? Flexibility, determination, fighting spirit, what defines her. That's why, you know, we have the fighting part. And Stonefree's string manipulation, I think it represents her inherent adaptability and resourcefulness. I don't really think that involves insect-like characteristics at all. Now, with having her normal being like grounded, human, and her being like the best example of the indomitable human spirit, I feel it checks out for me, right? And fighting type, Jolyne is a fighter through and through. She doesn't back down from confrontation and consistently chooses to face her problems head on. She had fought fate herself. She just has like an extremely great fighting spirit altogether. And I also said, like, I said no to bug because of the whole silk thing. I'm like, that's not good enough. I'm also not, I'm ignoring rock type too. Like, I'm not doing that just because her name was Stone Free. Like, that's not, no, that's Stone Ocean. Oh, this is going to be a rock type? You're ridiculous. Come on. Now, as for her abilities, the first ability, primary, is going to be Defiant. Yeah, this is like a Bisharp type of thing. When something tries to bring Jolyne down, she turns it up and she turns on the intensity instead, all right? Defiant raises the attack when stats are lowered, representing how Jolyne becomes stronger when faced with adversity. The second ability is Contrary, because I'm thinking that this is the same thing. We're just going to be doing this due to Stone Free more, right? So with her flipping the situations that should work in her favor, I think that Contrary being something where it's all like, hey, okay, this is supposed to end you, she ends up turning this into a completely different thing where, damn, this was your tactic to win the fight, but it's mine now. All right, let's go over to Jotaro, who I have as fighting psychic, and I know that a lot of people had disagreed with me because I didn't put him as a dark type. To me, I honestly, because I read the manga too, I don't see Jotaro as the dark brooding character that the anime has portrayed him as. I just don't get behind it. And I know that he's stoic. I don't think that he's just that person that people think that he is. It just doesn't check out to me. It doesn't make any sense. Now, Jotaro's approach, this is the fighting type part, Jotaro's approach is direct confrontation. You know, he's intelligent, but man, he solves his problems by putting on straight beats, right? The psychic type, I'm also going to be having this be more of like his analytical side, his thinking, his brain altogether. But I do think that Time Stop is a psychic ability. We don't have gravity type. Gravity type doesn't exist, but psychic does exist and fairy does exist. And I think those two are probably the closest thing that we have to a space type. His ability, his primary ability, I know people were messing with this one. This is good, all right? Mold Breaker, because Mold Breaker breaks the mold, all right? Jotaro consistently breaks through abilities, situations, everything that should be completely impossible to overcome because he is the GOAT, you know? His secondary ability, not hidden, I didn't give him a hidden one. I don't think he needs a hidden one. His secondary ability is Anger Point, as funny as it is. Because when Jotaro reaches his breaking point because he has been critically affected, be it in his spirit or body or whatever the heck, or other people have been affected like how Joseph had, that's when his power turns up. That's like exactly the ability, bro. So, critical hits, turning them up, that's Anger Point, bro. That's as blatant as it could be. Now we're on to Giorno, and I think this is the roughest one because the definitive thing is that he's grass because of Life Giver. But the secondary thing, there was stuff on the table. The original poster had poison. I thought that was fair. Bug is a good argument because of the types of life, but he doesn't really use insects like that. But it's just the fact that this is also representative of life because it's another living thing. But also in addition to that, I had thought of psychic because of GER, and I had also thought of flying because of, I think flying represents more of a free spirit rather than it just representing a bird, So let's say the definitive thing is that grass is guaranteed. The other stuff, I think, has an argument for each of those. Plus, Bug it's just so supportive because look at Gold Experience. Like, bro, that's a ladybug. He has ladybugs on his body too, like on Giorno's clothes. And also bugs, they go through metamorphosis, and he had went through metamorphosis. So this could be like, maybe it's grass bug originally, but then Giorno evolves, and then that's grass psychic. I think that makes the most sense. But for his primary ability, as surprising as it is, like you would expect other stuff relating towards like life and yada yada, I think it's Technician. So Technician essentially can make weak moves into strong moves. That's the easiest way to say this if you're not really a Pokemon person. And I think that Giorno excels at taking small, insignificant things and turns them into powerful tools. Technician is exactly this. Bruh, he made a frog lethal. And not in the way that Weather Report did. Like, it's kind of genius. And hidden ability, I thought of what could represent Gold Experience Requiem in the best way possible. But Pokemon hasn't really introduced something as ridiculous as a concept like that for an ability because it would be extremely ridiculous. So my idea, and I'm not going to give him multi-type just because, Arceus is godlike and Giorno's godlike. That's stupid. I would never do that. That's dumb. But I thought of Magic Bounce. The reason being, whatever type of status you wanted to get off on Giorno, technically speaking, I guess Diablo is like the status is you are going to be dead. That's not really a status. It's like it's more of a state of being, I guess. But Magic Bounce encapsulates this you can't get to me type of feeling that Giorno in GER form gives off. And I think that's truly the case. And the next one, this is Josuke 8. Look, they thought it was crazy. They thought it was wild. They don't get it. I get it. I understand. It looks wild, right? His typing is water flying. I'm going to talk about the flying part first, okay? This doesn't mean Josuke literally flies, all right? In this case, flying represents his free-spirited and adaptable personality. Flying type captures the essence of freedom and flexibility in Pokemon that should define Josuke's character, because many flying Pokemon aren't even birds. There's it's not like all of them. I'm saying that there's a good amount of ones that you'd be like, this isn't really even a bird, right? Look at Gyarados. That's not a bird. He can fly though. Now, that's a whole different thing. Okay, he can fly, but that's not the point, Flying in this case represents a state of being rather than a literal type. I think that's the case. Plus, I think, if you were to have like a water and flying, that's a bubble, bubbles fly. But I don't want to make it that stupid, all right? But the water type, yes, that is very straightforward. Soft and wet's bubble ability, that's water typing. It's a bubble. Like, what else would it be? His primary ability, I'm going to say, is adaptability. This represents Josuke's flexible approach to life and problems and the best that he does and how he tries to make the best out of any situation. Adaptability boosts the same type attack bonus, like it boosts stab, and it makes you stronger for being who you are, showing that Josuke excels when he's using his natural talents. His hidden ability, and this one's just funny, I'm not going to lie, because it could have been Infiltrator because bypassing certain barriers and all, but I thought it would be kind of also hilarious like I'm being for real, but I'm also being like, this is kind of really funny. I'm giving him Mega Launcher because, you know, Go Beyond, it represents like it's a large increase in power, and it does go beyond, and it's more about getting past the illogical and getting past all that goes against you, because calamity and all that. But man, like Mega Launcher, like, is that not, that'd be great. That just sounds hilarious to put on that guy. And plus, yeah, the rest of it would just be like stuff like Infiltrator and other stuff that just kind of seems more Johnny Act 4 stuff, but we'll be getting to that anyways. Next, we have Jodio Joestar, and his typings is kind of rough. So Fairy to me is guaranteed, but the next thing could be Ground. I could have had it be Dark Fairy to show the contrast between original Johnny and, you know, selfish nature and all this type of stuff, and what he had become in the end of it. I feel like that just makes more sense to just have him be dark and then something else like Dark Ground maybe earlier on, and then it becomes Fairy Ground later, because to become who he truly is. Fairy in this case, it represents his character growth and who he had become in his entirety, in the way that, like, the same reasons what I have for with Josuke and all right. I understand Dark has a good reason for it. It could be like Fairy Dark, but let's have it be like Dark Ground earlier. And Ground is still, that's even a toss up here too, because it could have been normal. When I'm talking about Ground type, I think that Tusk's abilities are bound to the earth for the most part. It's like at least 1 through 3, and the golden ratio and all, like, this is all relating towards Earth itself more than life. Because if it was all based on life and life energy and all that, I would have leaned more towards him being grass, but I think Ground is still representative of the physical nature of his stand powers, and Fairy Ground at the end of it just makes the most sense. I think there's an argument to be like, what, Fairy Psychic, or maybe like Psychic Ground or something like that, but I think that Fairy is the consistent thing here. Also, Ground has the ability to be consistent too, but it just takes a lot more when talking about Johnny. Now, ability-wise, I think Guts is something that had existed the entire time, because he had this resilience since the beginning of Steel Ball Run. That's why he continues to do what he does, despite his physical limitations and his trauma. He pushes past it. That's Guts, right? His second ability, not his hidden ability, because this is going to represent Tusk's like 1 through 3, more so 3 and 2, but no guard. It's going to represent 3 more. It's going to represent Tusk Act 3 the most. But no guard, because once Johnny develops Tusk, you know, his shots, he just can't miss, bro. Like, he does, but like, he just can't. And he makes it so that even when he does miss, he doesn't miss, bro. That's no guard. That's fire. Now, granted, that also means the other people have no guard too, because that's how that ability works. But I think that's a fair trade. I think a lot of times when Johnny has to put himself in the position to do the shooting, he does get popped for whatever reason and get captured by other people. So yeah, no guard being a double-edged sword, I feel like that checks out. And the last thing, even though it was Jotaro's like regular area, I put this as a hidden ability here. His hidden ability is Mold Breaker, right? And I wish I could give him 2 abilities at once. That's like probably the next step in Pokemon. Maybe Gen 10, you know, 2 abilities. We're just breaking it all. There's also like a Pokemon Showdown thing where you can have 2, but that's not the point, right? Tusk Act 4, infinite rotation. It's transcending logic, physics, etc., etc. Can't be stopped by any defensive ability. And that's truly what that is. So while Tusk Act 4 represents that, I think it's also fair to say that Jotaro can get Mold Breaker casually, because throughout the journey itself, he was breaking the mold. I think it's just that we don't have to think about it like in a severity type of thing, where it's like, how does Johnny have to level up to get where Jotaro wants to be? I think if Jotaro never missed 2, you know, that would also be pretty great for him. I mean, it would make other people not miss 2, but you know, you get the idea. Like, these things pay off for everybody in the way that it can. And finally, look, it's not gonna get a lot of explanation, all right? But we're gonna have Jodio. He is typing his water. His ability is Drizzle, because November Rain. Yeah, okay, cool. But he has a second typing, and it is Ghost. Why do I say Ghost? It also could be Psychic. But my thing is, November Rain is not what it seems. We just see it as like, oh, this is just, it's a rain ability. He has power of rain and yada yada. But he has the ability to make it rain like sideways. I'm telling y'all, this isn't casual. This isn't like a Loki thing. It's not just water. It's not just drizzle either. There's something about Jodio that we're gonna know about. Right. If there's Act 4, there's go beyond. Obviously, there's gonna be something for November Rain. So I'm putting my stocks in first to say here, ghost type. Don't know what that's gonna pan out to be, but I feel it.